Welcome back to the Empire's Legacy, where we uncover the true history of the Ottoman Empire, from its humble origins to its world-shaping glory. In our first episode, we traced the Kayı tribe's long, uncertain journey from the windswept steppes of Central Asia to the turbulent frontiers of Anatolia, driven by Mongol invasions, guided by their alliance with the Seljuk Sultanate. Today, we step into the life of a pivotal figure, Ertuğrul Ghazi, the first documented leader of the Kayı tribe in Anatolia. Known as the father of Osman I, the founder of the Ottoman Empire, Ertuğrul is a man cloaked in both history and legend. But who was he? What trials did he endure in a land torn by power and betrayal? And how did his leadership lay the foundation for an empire? Join us as we separate fact from myth and journey into the world of Ertuğrul Ghazi, the warrior who forged a legacy in the shadow of empires. It was the mid-13th century. The Kayı tribe had finally reached Anatolia, a region caught in the crossfire between the fading Byzantine Empire, the crumbling Seljuk Sultanate of Rum, and the ever-looming threat of the Mongol hordes. They settled in Söğüt, a small village near the Byzantine border. Lands likely granted by the Seljuk Sultan, Alaaeddin Keykubat for. Here, under the steady hand of Ertuğrul Ghazi, a transformation began. From humble nomads to fierce frontier warriors. But who exactly was Ertuğrul? And how did he guide his people through a world collapsing in conflict? To answer that, we must navigate a historical maze, one built on half-truths, forgotten scrolls, and the whispers of later Ottoman chroniclers. Ertuğrul Ghazi stands tall in Ottoman tradition, celebrated as the noble father of Osman I, the ancestor of a dynasty that would rule for 6 centuries. According to writers like Aşıkpaşazade and Neşri Ertuğrul was the son of Süleyman Shah, a leader who, they say, drowned crossing the Euphrates during the Great Migration. But, as we uncovered in episode 1, modern historians like Colin Imber doubt Süleyman Shah ever existed at all. There's simply no concrete evidence. Ertuğrul himself, though, is a more tangible figure. Still, his life, like so many on the frontier, is sparsely documented. He is believed to have led the Kayı tribe from the 1230s until his death around 1281. Nearly 50 years of quiet but determined leadership. During that time, he navigated a treacherous world, forging alliances, fighting enemies, and laying the very foundation for the empire his son would build. Most of what we know about Ertuğrul comes not from his own time, but from the pens of later chroniclers. Texts like Tevarihi al-i Osman by Aşıkpaşazade and Cihanuma by Neşri, written centuries after his death, and while they're valuable, they're not without problems. These chronicles often blur history and myth, crafted to glorify the Ottoman lineage. Actual records from the 13th century, from Seljuk or Byzantine archives, they're silent on a man named Ertuğrul, so we're left piecing together fragments. But here's what we do know. Ertuğrul led the Kayı tribe in Söğüt, a strategic village in Bithynia just miles from the Byzantine stronghold of Nicaea. He held the title of Yus Bey, a frontier lord, which meant his role was simple but dangerous. Defend the border, expand Muslim territory. Survive. The 13th century was chaos. The Seljuk Sultanate ruled much of central Anatolia, but it was falling apart, undermined by internal strife and Mongol dominance. The Byzantine Empire, once mighty, now a mere shadow, clinging to what little it still held. And in the east, the Mongols demanded tribute from trembling sultans. It was a land up for grabs. In this vacuum, small, El-Turkic beyliks, independent principalities, rose from the dust. And the Kayı, under Ertuğrul's guidance, carved out a place in Söğüt, fertile, strategic, and right on the fault line between civilizations. As Yus Bey, Ertuğrul had 2 choices: fall under the pressure or wield it into opportunity. Ottoman sources paint him as both warrior and diplomat. He's said to have fought Byzantine garrisons, forged alliances with Muslim neighbors, and even aided the Seljuk Sultan in a battle against the Mongols, earning the lands of Söğüt as a reward. Is that story true? Hard to say. But even if the details are blurred, the essence remains. Ertugrul was no ordinary tribal chief. His campaigns were small, calculated. Raids on border towns like Bilecik and Yenisehir, places that would later become Ottoman strongholds. These early victories? Modest. But they gave the Kayi something they'd never had before, a foothold, a future. But Ertugrul's real genius lay beyond the battlefield. When the Kayi arrived in Söğüt, they were still nomads, yurts, livestock, migration. That was their life. But Ertugrul, he saw something more. He began to settle the tribe, encouraged agriculture, built something permanent, a home. This was revolutionary, because permanence meant power. He also fostered unity, blending ancient Turkic customs with Islamic values. Some traditions say he was close to Sufi mystics, especially Sheikh Edebali, who would later become Osman's mentor and father-in-law. How involved Edebali truly was during Ertugrul's time is debated, but the narrative reflects something deeper. Islam was becoming the Kayi's spiritual anchor. Faith wasn't just belief. It was identity. The Kayi saw themselves as Ghazis, warriors for Islam, fighting against the Christian Byzantines, and Ertugrul embodied that spirit. Chroniclers claim he built mosques, supported scholars, promoted the faith. Do we have the ruins to prove it? Not quite. But the cultural shift is undeniable. The Kayi were changing, and Ertugrul was steering that change. His alliances with Muslim neighbors like Germian and Karaman only strengthened their base. Still, the frontier was unforgiving. Byzantine garrisons launched raids to reclaim territory. Other Turkic tribes fought for dominance, and the Mongols, always lurking. Ertugrul's tribe, a few thousand at best, and yet they held their ground. There's a tale, perhaps exaggerated, of Ertugrul outwitting a larger Byzantine force with clever tactics. True or not, it captures a deeper truth. He was cunning, brave, relentlessly protective of his people, and they loved him for it. We don't have many hard facts about Ertugrul, but we have clues. A rare Seljuk document hints at a Turkic leader in Bithynia receiving land for military service, possibly Ertugrul. In Söğüt, early Turkic graves suggest a growing settlement, a transformation in motion. Taken together, these fragments sketch a portrait, a pragmatic, visionary leader. One who didn't just survive the chaos, he built within it, secured land, formed alliances, prepared the way for something greater. When Ertuğrul Ghazi died, around 1281, he had led his people for nearly half a century. What he left behind was no empire. Not yet. But it was something just as powerful, a foundation, a tribe no longer wandering, but rooted, a people no longer just surviving, but striving. Söğüt became a base. His son Osman would turn it into the seed of a state. But before we move forward, we need to confront a more recent influence on Ertuğrul's image. Modern pop culture. In recent years, the Turkish drama Diriliş Ertuğrul has introduced millions around the world to his name. The show, visually stunning, emotionally gripping. But let's be clear, it's entertainment. Knights Templar, a Mongol warlords, court intrigues. None of that appears in the historical record. The show emphasizes his ties to Sheikh Edebali, his love story with Halime. But those two are later additions, fabricated centuries after his death. Still, there's no denying it has rekindled interest in Ottoman history, and perhaps that's its own kind of legacy. But the true legacy of Ertuğrul Ghazi, it lies in the quiet, strategic decisions, the tough calls, the grit of leadership. By the time he passed, the Kayı tribe had become something else entirely. Organized, rooted, inspired. Ertuğrul didn't live to see the empire rise, but he made it possible. He raised Osman not just as a son, but as a successor, a founder. And in our next episode, we follow Osman I's journey, the Declaration of Independence, and the moment in 1299 that changed history forever. Thank you for joining us on the Empire's Legacy as we uncovered the life of Ertuğrul Ghazi, the first great leader of the Kayı tribe. What moved you most in his story, his strength in chaos, the myth and the man entwined, or the roots he laid down for a future empire? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you found this episode meaningful, please like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon. It means more than you know. Together, we'll keep uncovering the true story of the Kayı tribe, one episode at a time. Until next time, keep seeking truth in history, and may Ertugrul's legacy inspire your own. Farewell.